So I wanted to explore the powerful world of being an Ecrivent manifester, or more popularly known as Claircognizance, to see if you have this intuitive skill or the potential for it. So the T.E.V.A.S of our aptitudes or superpowers feature in the award-winning visionary fantasy novel Helio Tropez, and the 5 main aptitudes of tangent, ecrivent, voyant, audient, and sentient, or T.E.V.A.S for short, is a system to identify your extrasensory and sensory strengths and weaknesses. And there's a quick quiz you can do to find out your dominant style for fun. So just go to goldenagetimeline.com and you'll see it there at the top of the page. Hi, I'm C.M. Rieger, the author of several books and the host of the Golden Age Timeline channel and podcast. So in the last video, we talked about the tangent manifester or aptitude. So today we'll focus on the ecrivent manifester or aptitude. So these 5 T.E.V.A.S manifestation styles are like the box of tools or palette of colors you use when playing around in the world of imagination and intention. And they are similar to the 5 clairs: clairtangent, clairecrivent, clairvoyant, clairaudient, and clairsentient. And they are also similar to learning styles such as the V.A.R.C system of auditory, kinesthetic, reading, writing, visual, and with the added emotional feeling style of learning. And we use all these sensory, extrasensory learning and manifestation aptitudes anyways, so the T.E.V.A.S system just helps you name and identify and become more comfortable with these abilities that we all have, latent or manifest. So how to recognize Ecrivents? Well, they are often seen quietly studying, reading, or writing, so think about if that's true for you. They will often use the words "I know" a lot in conversation and in written communication. And with greetings, they prefer a more formal, non-touch greeting, such as a head nod. They're not the hugging type. Now, the best way for Ecrivents to learn is by reading. They like researching and studying on or offline. They go in depth to find gems of knowledge. They get their best ideas when uninterrupted in a quiet place. And of course, by writing, they may like to journal. They take a lot of notes when studying and organize their notes and research in a clear way. So think about if those 2 things are true for you. Now, the regular sensory perception of an Ecrivent, the advantages are that they come across as very intelligent, thoughtful, philosophical, perhaps a great use of language, and will do their due diligence before making a decision. They're not the impulsive type. Disadvantages in extreme types, where they might not be balanced with the other styles, is that they may be too introverted, antisocial, and disconnected from life. They can be lost in their heads, ungrounded, and inattentive to practical physical details. The absent-minded professor type. Now, the extrasensory perception of an Ecrivent might be automatic writing or channeled writing, where they're bringing in messages from their higher self or a higher source. They just let their hand do the writing and it comes out on the page. Or you could think of them in terms of claircognizance, where they have the ability to just know information or read records or see the code, the symbols, the underlying structure of life without physically seeing them. They just kind of know. Now, the best way to manifest as an Ecrivent is to write about your goal or vision. So if you want to manifest a vacation to Hawaii, you would write about being there in detail, what you're going to do, where you're going to go, sort of getting it down on paper makes a big difference, and also reading about your goal or vision. So reread your journal entries, read about Hawaii, places to go, and fill your mind with the details of the place through reading and writing. Now, the types of professions where you'd see a lot of Ecrivents Anything, of course, to do with reading and writing, like a librarian or editor or journalist or researcher, writer, systems analyst, IT, lawyer, professor, investigator, historian, biologist, educator. Of course, all the writing professions, blogger, publisher, copywriter, reviewer, translator. So think about if those are the type of professions you've been drawn to. Now, why it's useful to know if you're an Ecrivent manifester, voyant, tangent manifester, etc., is because it helps you to use your natural inclinations more constructively. We all use our senses, imagination, and intention to manifest anyway, but sometimes not very effectively, and sometimes for things we don't actually want. For example, a common way to teach manifestation ability is to say affirmations to yourself, such as, I am a successful entrepreneur, even if you're not, to change your self-image and thus change your reality. Two problems with that. Saying affirmations is useful if you're an audient or clairaudient manifester, but not if you're one of the others. If you're an Ecrivent, writing out that affirmation and reading it back to yourself would be much better. Secondly, stating I am anything when it's not true yet can create cognitive dissonance. It's better to say I am becoming, say, a successful entrepreneur, because the logical side of your mind finds that harder to dispute. If you're just starting out or going through a dip, you could still be on the road there, becoming successful, just not there yet. Also, it's best to specifically define what success means, such as making X amount per month in profit, working with ideal clients, doing what I love. Because some entrepreneurs seem successful to others, but their huge profits get eaten up by huge expenses, or they're working with clients that are far from ideal or not doing what they love. I had one coaching client who turned out to be an Ecrivent manifester, and someone had suggested he create a vision board of images that he wanted, like places he wanted to visit. Now that would be helpful if he was a voyant, clairvoyant manifester, as visuals are their main tools to helping bring something into existence, but only once he started writing out the details of where he wanted to visit, that's when it started manifesting. I had another Ecrivent client who was worrying about not having enough money to pay the bills and writing about it in her journal. That meant she was using her senses, imagination, and Ecrivent ability to create what she didn't want. Now I say it's okay to get clear on worries by writing them out. But once you bring those to the surface, it's then good to write out what you want instead, such as plenty of income to pay the bills each month. Like specific amounts written out on paper, rereading that. Why? Because it creates a new filter in the mind. It's called the reticular activation system. Instead of filtering the world in terms of finding evidence for not having enough income, she started filtering the world in terms of finding evidence for having more than enough income. And it gave her several ideas, such as to call a certain person who referred her for some contract work, to look at an old investment to discover it had grown exponentially, and to let go of a bill for something she never used anymore, thus lowering her expenses. If she'd stayed in the worry mindset, she would never have had those thoughts and taken those actions. So if she had stayed in the worry mindset, she would never have had those thoughts and taken those actions. So to understand how the 5 main styles differ from each other, sometimes it's useful to look at stories, popular shows, and well-known characters to illustrate the difference between the types. Now, I used to write comedy, and so studied some of the most popular sitcoms to understand the tropes, the character types, and such. Most hit comedy shows tend to put 4 to 5 totally different characters together to help create the comedy through the inevitable conflict and contrast that emerges because of their differences. Whether it's old comedies like the original Lucy Show, Seinfeld, Friends, or new ones like Ted Lasso, or even long-running ones like The Big Bang Theory, you can see that in place. So let's take Big Bang Theory because a lot of people have watched that show. So each of the characters is funny because they're imbalanced. They are extreme in their personality style. A well-balanced character isn't usually funny. They're often the straight man or woman. The comedic characters are out of balance. So in The Big Bang Theory, Sheldon Cooper is an extreme Ecrivent, in my estimation. He's a researcher. He likes studying, reading, writing, formulating lists, formulating agreements. He likes things more than people. In contrast, his roommate Leonard is more of the voyant type, which I'll talk about in the next episode. He's very visual, very visually attracted to Penny, for example. And Penny is more of a tangent, which we talked about in the last episode. She's a hugger, very physical, grounded, went hunting with her father, not so intellectual like Sheldon. Raj, on the other hand, is sentient, very emotional, soft-spoken, sentimental, very attached to his dog, for example. Whereas Howard is more of the audience. He's very musical. He's good at doing impressions, quick-witted humor, fiery and passionate temperament. And as I said, it's often enjoyable to learn about things like this in story form. So in the novel Helio Tropez, the side character of Meta is an Ecrivent with a special nuance known as the poet or Ecrivent acceptance. There's 5 nuances of each main T.E.V.A.S style. So she's an amazing poet, songwriter, a master of words in all respects, but the downside is that she can also use the written word to keep people lost in regret or distrust. So that's something to watch out for if you're that type of Ecrivent. Now, Stavron is another character in the story, and he is also an Ecrivent, and his nuance is the mind coder or Ecrivent reprogram. Used in an empowering way, he can reprogram the mind of, say, a traumatized person so they can heal. And he can do the same for an object or even the earth herself. But used in a disempowering way, he can reprogram the mind of a person to be more traumatized. So the power has to be used wisely, like with any of these abilities. Some people do see patterns in how others think, how computer codes work. They kind of grok the language of a brain or an operating system far better than others. Now, you may not realize you're doing this, but it's like you just know the truth of someone or something, and you're reading deeper levels of code. It's the idea that behind the illusory reality we live in, there's this sacred geometry, code, symbols, and it's available within us to translate that into something meaningful for our everyday lives. So as a reminder, you can get this T.E.V.A.S Aptitudes ebook, and then you'll get a lot more details about the different styles. Just look for the link below to try the 60-second quiz. And if you're into buying, collecting, and selling NFTs, non-fungible tokens, you can get an NFT of these characters and several other characters from the book Helio Tropez on Mint Fun and several other platforms. So I'll put a link to that below as well. And if you'd like to know a bit more about the novel Helio Tropez, stay for a short book trailer.
In a world where love, time travel, and psychic powers converge, prepare to embark on an extraordinary journey. The second edition of the captivating science fiction and epic fantasy novel Helio Tropez is now here, Book 1 of the Timeline Redemption series. Tia Violetta's life is about to unravel as she approaches her 30th birthday. Secluded in a Seattle mansion, protected by her paranoid father, she remains unaware of her true heritage and the looming threat to herself and all of humanity. Little does she know, Tia holds the key to something extraordinary, something that the malevolent AI, Sim, relentlessly pursues. Tia and her father, Haddon, are descendants of a subterranean city called Helio Tropez, with inhabitants possessing awe-inspiring abilities. Only by uniting with 4 other women in her family can Tia unleash her pentata powers and help free humanity from the clutches of the parasitic Sim who has kept them apart. But the story takes a heart-stopping twist. Just moments before old Haddon passes away, a young Haddon travels 50 years into the future to protect Tia. This selfless act sets in motion a series of events that shatter Tia's world, fracturing their reality into two separate timelines. As Tia and young Haddon navigate treacherous terrains across timelines, their journey tests their resilience and family bonds. Humanity's fate hangs in the balance, poised for ascension or annihilation. One reviewer says, "There is a metaphysical aspect that makes it so much more than just a good read. Fans of sci-fi fantasy will enjoy it for sure, but readers who seek depth will be thrilled to step out of the mundane and into this fascinating world. If you love rich and fascinating characters and compelling plot lines, this is for you." If you want to listen to a sample of the prologue, just click on the link below. And if you're ready to dive into the world of Helio Tropez, get your copy by using the link below or go on Amazon. It's spelled HELIOTROPEZ. Start today exploring this page-turning journey through time and through space.